YouTube! Today we're going to be checking out rare tornadoes in unlikely locations. This here's by Swiggle Studios. Several of you have been telling me I need to watch some of his videos. You guys love them. And you all also recommended this video. Several people, once again. So, what a better way to watch our first Swiggle video and knock out a recommendation at the same time. Let's hop into it.
On July 23, 1987, the U.S. Forest Service discovered a peculiar site in the Teton Wilderness, a national forest in western Wyoming. What they witnessed was a massive area of fallen trees. Over 1 million trees had been completely destroyed along a 25-mile path. Some sections of the destroyed path were over 1.5 miles wide. Confused, they contacted the experts at the National Weather Service, who noted that just 2 days prior on July 21st, western Wyoming had experienced a strong storm. The National Weather Service decided to send out a team of investigators to further study this path of destroyed trees. One man who was on said team was none other than Ted Fujita, certified tornado legend. After several surveys, Fujita and his team concluded that the 25-mile path was caused by a tornado. But not just any tornado, a large and violent F4. F4 tornadoes anywhere are rare. Like even in the US they're rare. But over western Wyoming, like that's almost unheard of. In the western United States, there's just a number of characteristics that...
Yo, does Wyoming get a lot of, is that somewhat common? I don't think I've ever heard of Wyoming getting a tornado. But I'm kind of new to the game too, so...
that operate against tornadoes. In fact, here's a map of all the violent F4 tornadoes in the US. And way over here is the Teton Wilderness F4. The tornado continues to hold many records, including both the strongest tornado ever recorded west of the Continental Divide and the highest altitude F4 tornado at over 10,000 feet in elevation. A similar tornado event in the Rocky Mountains probably occurs once every 150 years. In geographic regions where tornadoes seem unlikely, the atmosphere can still do some pretty crazy things. In rare instances, the right ingredients can come together and form large and even violent tornadoes. And that's what this video is about, rare tornadoes in unlikely locations. We're going all over the world. We're talking about Europe, we're talking about Canada, we're talking about the southern hemisphere. We're even going to talk about the middle of the ocean. But before we go all across the world, I want to start off here in the US. Of course, many of us have heard of Tornado Alley. There's also Dixie Alley, which is just as active, but...
I do want to start off saying, this dude is extremely well spoken. I wish I was that good. I'm not. Obviously. Hey man, when I get to rambling, I'm all over the place. And the pure hillbilly comes out of me. I feel sorry for people that try to listen to me when I start rambling or get flustered. It has to be a hot mess. You about need to someone to translate what's taking place.
Not quite as well known. These areas by far get the most intense tornadoes on Earth. Looking back at that map from earlier, you can definitely see just how active Tornado and Dixie Alley are. But there still are a few twisters that are a bit out of place. Of course, we talked about the Teton Wilderness F4 from 1987, way out here, clearly out of place. But there's also a few notable examples to the east. One of these, the June 9th, 1953 Worcester tornado, was actually once classified as an F5. However, a team of experts from the National Weather Service in 2005 deemed it to just be a strong F4. Nevertheless, the Worcester tornado was a horrific event. Around 5 p.m. it plowed through the communities of Worcester, Shrewsbury, Southborough, and Westborough, destroying 4,000 buildings and taking the lives of 94 individuals.
Oh my god.
Looking back at our map, another unusually placed tornado is this super long tract F4 that crossed the entire state of Florida on April 5th.
The entire state. Straight across.
1966. This storm resulted in 11 fatalities. The event is known as the Largo Clearwater Carrollwood Temple Terrace Galloway Gibsonia Loman tornado. It was a long track tornado. We're talking 218 kilometers, so you're going to have a lot of affected communities. The most affected of these communities was Gibsonia, where 7 fatalities occurred. Florida actually has more tornadoes per square mile than any other state, but when it comes to the super high rated and intense tornadoes, they're quite rare. Moving on to the western United States, tornadoes are clearly way more uncommon. The reason the US has so many tornadoes to begin with is the unique geography created by the Gulf of Mexico and the Rocky Mountains. You get that warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico, you get that cool, dry air from the Rocky Mountains. They mix, and tornadoes form. And west of the Rocky Mountains, you just don't get those unique conditions. However, if we show F3 tornadoes, a few pop up, and the most intriguing to me is the April 5th, 1972 Portland, Oregon and Vancouver, Washington F3. Most of the severe damage occurred across the Columbia River on the Vancouver side, where a bowling alley and even an elementary school were heavily damaged. All in all, there would be 6 fatalities. Alright, we're going to leave the US and we're going to head up north to our lovely neighbors, Canada. Canadian tornadoes are...
Canada has had one EF5. We checked that out maybe a week or two ago. Eli. And I know you guys get tore up when we call it Ellie. So we're going to call it Ellie. Ellie, Canada. It's their only EF5.
Almost like their own distinctive class. There's something just so calm and beautiful about them. While Canada doesn't get nearly as many F5 tornadoes as the US, they can claim what might be the greatest F5 of all time. The 2007 Eiley, Manitoba F5. Why is it the greatest? Well, just look at how beautiful it is. Also, it didn't kill or injure anyone, so it might just be the GOAT tornado. Unfortunately, not all Canadian tornadoes are quite as great as the Eiley F5. The Black Friday tornado was a rare Far West F5.
I'm going to look at the comments after this. And I'm going to be disappointed if you all are not roasting him like you have everybody else. You heard what he called it. I'm going to make sure you all are staying consistent.
That claimed 27 lives and injured 300 on July 31st, 1985 over the city of Edmonton in central Alberta. It destroyed more than 300 homes, and some of the images of this beast are quite terrifying. A lesser known Canadian tornado is the July 14th, 2000 Pine Lake tornado. This was an F3 that took the lives of 12 individuals, most of the fatalities occurring at the Green Acres campground at Pine Lake, also located in central Alberta. Another region not typically known for tornadic activity is Europe. But there have been some significant events. In fact, there's been some pretty recent significant events. One recent event was the unusual F4 that occurred over South Moravia, Czech Republic in 2021. While the majority of the F4 strength was over open rural areas, the towns of Ruska, Moravska Nova Ve, Mikulcice, and Lusik were directly hit with EF3 strength, which in the end resulted in 6 fatalities. The tornado was the first EF4 strength tornado to occur in the Czech Republic and the deadliest to occur in Europe since 2001. Another EF4 strength tornado that recently occurred in Central Europe was the tornado that struck near Venice, Italy on July 8, 2015. This truly looks like it's something straight out of Kansas.
In Italy?
But no, it occurred next to this. Pretty wild. This tornado resulted in 1 fatality. Another F4 hit northern France on August 3, 2008, resulting in 3 fatalities. Not much footage exists, but it did leave quite a path through the countryside. Germany has had a long history of tornadoes, including one of the earliest ever documented in 1587. In 1968, the British Pathé documented the damage caused by a large EF4 tornado that hit Pforzheim, Germany. This event has been referred to as the Black Forest tornado. And I do want to quickly mention the recent EF3 that occurred between France and Belgium on October 23rd, 2022.
So are these places like, I haven't heard much out of Europe about tornadoes. Like, is it one of those things where it's like extremely rare? Or is it one of those, like, they get them, but not very often type deals? Because, for me, I've never heard of France getting a tornado. Or the Czech Republic. That's crazy.
Thankfully, there were 0 deaths. Moving on to Eastern Europe. On June 9th, 1984, a particularly strong F4 tornado hit the Soviet Union. This tornado was actually once rated an F5, but has recently been demoted. Either way, it was a very violent tornado that took at least 80 lives. This particular F4 struck the regions of Ivanovo and Yaroslavl about 150 miles north.
I would have butchered the names of those places so bad, man.
north of Moscow. And it was just one of 11 tornadoes from that day. And the overall death toll for all 11 tornadoes may have been close to 400, making it the third deadliest tornado outbreak in European history.
Jesus.
One tornado from that day also left a scar in the forest that the Soviets later turned into villages. I did a short about it, you can check it out if you want. Speaking of tornado scars, one in an extreme location was recently found in far eastern Russia. Take a look at this on Google Earth. If you go back to 1980s satellite data, you can clearly see a well-defined path. In fact, you can even still see the remnants today. Wild.
Dude, that's
Look
crazy.
how out of place it is. Like, it's literally almost in Asia. And this path is thick, like El Reno thick. It measures out to be about 2.3 miles wide, making it potentially one of the largest tornadoes ever.
2.3 miles wide. What was El Reno? I'm pretty sure it was like 2.6, or was it 2.8? I think it was 2.6.
Documented. This path was brought to my attention on Twitter by Krill Bakanov. It's estimated that this tornado could have occurred in the late 50s or early 60s. This to me is so interesting. If you know any more information about this, let me know. Since we're kind of in the neighborhood, take a look at Mongolia. I have every tornado turned on, so EF0 all the way through EF5, and there's literally just one documented tornado, and it's a powerful one, another F4.
Shoot.
I had no idea about this, but check it out. There's a video of it, and it's clearly a strong tornado. This tornado took place on July 26, 2014. It appears to be out in the middle of a desert plain, and there was also one fatality from it.
Oh, wow.
Of course, we
RIP.
don't want to forget about the Southern Hemisphere. Tornadoes do occur in the Southern Hemisphere, it turns out. And let's start off with Australia. Looking at Australia, here's a map of all the documented EF3 plus tornadoes since 1970. And we only have one EF4.
So I had no idea that Australia got tornadoes. With that said, did you see them? They're all like on the very edge. It's so weird. Like every one of them is like right at the edge.
In the east near Bundaberg. It occurred on November 29th, 1992. This is referred to as the 1992 Buka tornado. Overall, 9 homes were destroyed, some of them being completely flattened to the ground. Thankfully, there were no fatalities, however, 20 cows were killed. It's always difficult to know what the true Fujita rating is
It's always the cows, man.
of tornadoes that occurred outside the US, but some have estimated that the Buka tornado could have been an F5. Officially though, it's an F4, and perhaps the strongest documented tornado in Australian history. During that same year, another EF3 tornado occurred in the northwestern section of Tasmania, so that's pretty awesome. South Africa also gets some pretty significant tornadoes. There's the 1999 Manenberg tornado located within Cape Town. This tornado occurred on August 29th and resulted in 5 fatalities. 5,000 residents were also left homeless in the aftermath. Earlier in that same year, on January 18th, an F4 impacted Mount Aleph, South Africa, resulting in 25 fatalities. Most recently, on October 2nd, 2011, an F4 struck near Johannesburg, resulting in several injuries and 1 fatality. 2011 was not a good year. And of course, across the Atlantic and
True. 2011 was wild. 2011 was wild. It was some of the strongest tornadoes ever produced that year.
South America, we actually have an F5 tornado that occurred in Argentina on January 10th, 1973. This is known as the San Justo F5, and this tornado completely leveled several blocks within the city with winds estimated at 250 miles per hour. Very intense. There were 63 fatalities and over 350 injuries. Some eyewitnesses even claim that the tornado was red due to it destroying several red brick apartment buildings. That would definitely be pretty crazy to see. This tornado holds many records, including the strongest documented tornado not only in Argentina, but in the entire southern hemisphere. Truly out of place. Okay, so what about a tornadic supercellular mesocyclonic tornado in the middle of the ocean? I'm not talking like a water spout or like a fair weather water spout. I'm talking about like a true supercell
The real
tornado
deal.
in the middle of the Pacific. Can that happen? Has it happened? Well, the ocean doesn't really provide the proper elements for supercells to occur, but perhaps under some very unique circumstances, anything is possible. I've seen some towering cumulus clouds way off in the distance over the ocean before, so it's definitely possible. We do have some tornadic mesocyclonic supercellular tornadoes that are close to the coast over the ocean, though. One example is a tornado that formed during the Sydney to Hobart yacht race on December 26, 2001. Thankfully, no one was killed, but I mean, check this thing out. It looks
Oh my
sick.
God.
Likely an F2, but still a force to be reckoned with. What about a water wedge? A wedge tornado is a tornado that's wider than it is tall. You know, not many people think of water spouts being wedge tornadoes, but they do occur every once in a while. One example actually occurred off the coast in Carchuna, Spain in 2001. They've also been known to occur in the Gulf of Mexico, like this one in October of 2019 off the coast of Pensacola Beach, Florida.
That looks just like a straight up tornado.
All right, I want to finish this video by briefly talking about some extreme locations, like truly extreme, like Antarctica. Has there been a tornado over Antarctica?
Has there?
No. In fact, Antarctica is the only continent that doesn't have a tornado on record. But how close can we get to the North and South Poles? On August 26, 1976, a very weak tornado made brief landfall approximately 29 miles north of the Arctic Circle in Hockley Hills near Kiana, Alaska. The tornado report from this location is the most northerly one ever made. It was just one of those super quick touchdown mountain tornadoes, you know, kind of like this
crazy.
one from Montana. So, nothing crazy. In terms of the furthest south, Puerto Montt, Chile seems to get a lot of tornadoes. And there are a few videos of them, but if you look at this map, these are all very recent, like within the past 10 years. I mean, might not be the furthest south ever documented, but definitely pretty far south. That's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching.
Hey guys, yo, Sweggle's awesome, very well spoken, and thank you for the recommending the video. I appreciate all of you. That's awesome. I was kind of excited to hear about a tornado in Antarctica whenever I seen the thumbnail. I mean, you know, I didn't want anybody to get hurt, but it would have been cool. With that said, that tornado that went the whole horizontal length of Florida, that's crazy. That's crazy. But I didn't know Europe, like, you know, I've definitely heard of some tornadoes over there, like, you know, in the UK, and you know, I'd heard that Russia had one before, and Bangladesh is a wild one, right? But that doesn't fit the theme of this guy's video. Bangladesh actually they hold like 6 of the top 10 spots for deadliest tornadoes. Yeah, but like France and Germany, I had no idea. And I never knew that Australia got tornadoes. That's wild. I had no idea. Absolutely no idea. And what was it? The closest to the North Pole, Alaska. That had to, I wish there would have been some actual footage of it. That would have been so cool. You know, it's somewhere where it's not going to hurt anyone. It's on top of this beautiful mountain. Wow. But yeah, hey man, we're learning, dude. We're learning. Like, you know, these it seems like tornadoes are literally everywhere, for the most part. I mean, unless you want to move to Antarctica, which I'd imagine the reason it's not getting one just because I don't think they experience temperatures above 0 degree Fahrenheit. That helps, right? No heat. But water spouts too. I actually, you know, I don't know anything much about water spouts. I'm going to have to do a little research here and educate myself. But yeah, once again, man, thank you all for the recommendation on this video. Now I know, yeah, almost everywhere gets it, man. Almost everywhere. And here I was at one point thinking that, you know, it was just kind of like this, you know, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, you know. We're learning. All right, guys, I am Cheap. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe. And I'll have Sweggle's video in the description below if you'd like to check it out yourself, or just check out his channel in general. That will be in the description. Y'all have a good one.